Hello, Garland Nixon here, hanging out with Andrei Martyanov and someone lingering out there, Scott Ritter. He's going to show up. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here, hanging out with Andrei Martyanov. Scott's going to show up at some point, but that's fine. We can get talking. One of the things that I was thinking about, Andre, and that is, traditionally you talk about like Russia, who is a dominant, very, very dominant land army. Traditionally, the U.S. kind of in the tradition of the British Empire saw themselves as the dominant, and may have been for at some point as the dominant sea power, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
However, now, even though Russia's a dominant land army, if you have missiles with the accuracy and the range and the capability, you become a dominant sea power. In fact, without even having the number of ships or anything else, you become a dominant sea power based on missiles alone.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mention it because before going here, I was preparing my video tomorrow. Okay, I always prepare like day before, then in the morning I just scroll the latest date and that's it. And I have the paper. It was unclassified, but it was a very important paper by the Defense Science Board at Pentagon. At that time, the Department of Defense, they call it. Today it's Ministry of War, whatever. So, and in 2008, they sent this memorandum. It's actually a large paper, and it's volume 1, then there are all kinds of tables. The Science Board sent it to the Secretary of Defense. And it was also sent, CC'd to the Office of the Undersecretary for the Acquisition and Technology. And it was titled Capability Surprise. And they said, we don't know what is going on out there, but they presented to you why United States constantly surprised with everything. And they have this wonderful, basically number of points which they stressed on why United States loses wars, always has this surprise, and now capability surprise. And it's a wonderful document because you can see, you can read there pretty much, substantial thinking behind that. Obviously, it went nowhere, precisely because of the reasons they also point out there. And since then, if you would follow at that time the news from, and I remember this very well, in 2008, immediately after the, basically wiping the floor with the, Georgian army, which was commanded and supplied by the United States and Israel and all that. In 5 days, Russian army, which was, backward, they finished it off. And then the news started to circulate that, there is this thing, the new anti-shipping missiles coming in, and of course, hypersonics. At that time, as you might understand, as was predicted in this 2008 paper, United States simply dismissed it. It's not going to happen because it's impossible. Boy, were they right. I mean, these guys from scientific board, they were right. Boy, Pentagon haven't been. And so when suddenly you have the change of the whole balance of power, because, the fundamental, which also is prescribed there, we can solve it by the existing means. No, you can't. It's a revolution, and you cannot intercept it. There's nothing to intercept it. And now then there is all those, demonstrations of, especially Oreshnik, which is not anti-shipping, obviously, but we don't know how they can basically do the targeting of what you can expect any kind of things happening there. So you can see yourself, the hypersonic realm is now mature. Only Russia has it in this. And what is most important, it used it to a devastating effect in the real combat against real targets, and both naval and the ports, infrastructure and things of this nature. And I'm not talking about Oreshnik, I'm talking about 3M22 Zircon. And of course, there is this thingy, funny one called Kinjal, with a range of 2,500 kilometers. Zircon has 1,500 kilometers. It is all beyond the basically touch of the farthest on the edge of the combat patrol of the early warning, the carrier battle group, early warning, E2 Hawkeyes and things of this nature. They don't even see it. And first, they cannot touch it because it all happens way beyond the grasp of the what used to be. They say, oh, carrier battle group, goes out and touches everything up to 1,000 kilometers. Well, they can launch it from 2.5. Good luck intercepting or even reacting on this. And so, suddenly you have this situation. Plus, obviously, Russia introduced the new, absolutely state-of-the-art, the most advanced nuclear-powered submarines, and then suddenly, you have this situation. But and that is why we observe what is happening right now, because even when you read the national security strategy, which was surprisingly, common sense, sort of, it's still Trump's document, but especially the national defense strategy 2026 NDS, they published it last week. It doesn't matter how you use verbiage. It is a downright, straight admission that, yep, we're screwed, So let's stake out for now, or stake our possession of the Western Hemisphere. Not that many people will really follow nowadays, but at least we can grab this, and then play the Southeast Asia with China. The United States still kind of, despite all those statements, they view China as the enemy. And but Russia suddenly, Russians are not going to attack Europe. Correct. Why would Russians attack Europe? Europeans will kill themselves. Sure. Iron Curtain, and let them deal with this, and as a result, we have this total change of balance of power in the world. And the fact that the United States, if you take a look right now, Roosevelt, right, is in with his carrier battle group in Arabian Sea and near Iran, and Indian Ocean, essentially. And I don't think you can intimidate Iran with a single, or for that matter, 3 carrier battle groups. They are not the kind of guys, So that's it. That's the extent of your power. Period.
Well, if we go all the way back to, the sailing ships, and what was sea power about? Well, you had cannons, and you had to get in range of the other ship or the other harbor, and then whoever had the longest reach. It was about range then, but the range then was about it might have been a half a mile, a quarter mile, a couple of kilometers, whatever. But so you okay. But now, well, there we go. Stop Ritter.
Sorry.
but what we're talking about is how the issue of missiles have changed warfare. When there was sailing ships, okay, a great sailing power had all of these ships, and they would close enough with range, for the cannons to strike each other, or you had your a little island maybe out from your city that had some cannons, so they couldn't get all the way into the harbor. And now you can have a submarine if you've got missiles with 1,500, 1,700 kilometer range. You stake a couple of submarines across the say Atlantic Ocean. You cover the whole Atlantic Ocean with half a dozen submarines. So that my point being, all this money that we are spending on ships and all this discussion about these big ships, here's my point. You have to use diplomacy now, because if you get involved even with Iran, you're going to lose ships. If we had stuck around in the Red Sea, we're
not going there. And at least there's this understanding. Keep in mind, when the United States really went ballistic in the end of 19th century, and this whole naval ideas and navalism started to propagate, it was because of the Chilean armor ship. I don't remember. The title is some kind of Spanish
The
title.
exocets?
No. I'm talking about like 1890.
Oh, sorry, okay.
1901, when everybody like, oh my God, this thing has like 20-kilometer range guns, and San Francisco, what are we gonna do? So oh my God, and United States went into this massive naval, basically the bill in Congress passed and all that. So, and then it's kind of continues with this, and then suddenly, well, it's different today.
Scott, your thoughts on how the missiles and drones have changed the face of warfare, period?
Well, they have. I mean, it's a revolution in military technology, similar to the machine gun, similar to the repeating rifle. When you get weapons, tactics change. But one thing that we have always seen is that every weapon has a counter. Drones now, it's just fascinating to watch how, when the special military operations started, remember the revolution in drone warfare was the Turkish
Bayraktar.
Pardon?
It was called the Bayraktar. The Turkish Bayraktar.
And, they had their and this changed everything. I mean, this drone was there, and today they don't even fly. I mean, they because they don't survive. The drones now are, there's the number of different types of drones. I was talking to a commander of the Burevestnik unit, which is a drone warfare unit in the Second Army Corps' area of operation, and you start with the small, FPV drone, but even FPV drone, first person drones, were they're the attackers, but they use them for reconnaissance. They use them for electronic warfare. They use them for, logistics resupply. And then you go all the way up to the other drones that they have out, to the Shaheeds. And now there's the new generation Shaheeds, jet powered and all this. It's changed everything. I mean, today, the usage of drones is the same thing with missiles. When this war started, the Iskander missile was an army level asset, rarely used. It was like, we got an Iskander, let's hold on to it, and maybe we'll fire it against a command and control facility. Today they're just popping the Iskanders off. I mean, they're because the whole nature of war has changed, and these long-range precision strikes. Seymour Hersh just wrote an article where he, we don't need to get into the details of it, but there was a quote in there where allegedly Gerasimov was bemoaning, artillery barrels, being shot smooth, and we don't have. When this war started, they were pounding out, 50, 60,000 rounds a day. Not today. Today, artillery is a precision weapon. The drones go out there, locate the target, and they'll bring in their artillery and they'll fire, because it's not survivable. Artillery doesn't survive today if you have massed artillery fire. So they'll bring the artillery in, you'll find the target, you'll fire, and then displace. The whole war has changed. The way and the West doesn't understand it. We have no clue what's going on. I mean, I laugh when I don't mean to laugh at the Marines, because I am a former Marine and I love my Marine Corps. But they've created a drone unit now, and they're out there doing research. The research and development, and they're basically discovering. I mean, it's my wife and I we went and saw this Harry Potter play in Broadway. Cool, funny little story. But we decided we're going to start watching. We watched the Harry Potter series, and I remember the first Harry Potter movie. The joy of magic. I mean, as Harry Potter just sort of discovered magic, and every time they did, it was like, wow, magic. Whoa, magic. Whoa, magic. Well, this is like the Marines. Oh, you mean we can drop a grenade from a drone? We can drop a grenade from a drone? Oh, and then, their eyes were, we're going to crash the drone? No. I'm a Lance Corporal. I signed for this drone from my first sergeant. I'm going to return the drone to my first sergeant intact, because that's what I do. No. Take the drone and crash it. oh, I ain't going to crash that drone, until suddenly they realize that's what drones were supposed to be. And they're bang, bang, bang. We're discovered, but the Ukrainians and the Russians, they've already done this. They are eons ahead of where we are on drone warfare and ballistic missile warfare. The Iranians, they've turned conventional ballistic missiles into a nuclear level deterrence. Israel is scared to death right now of Iranian conventional ballistic missiles because the Iranians have mastered the technology. They've produced missiles that have different capabilities, and when you combine them in the totality, it is a nation-killing capability. So we don't understand it. I'll stop there.
Andre, I'll say this: in watching the first time where the Iranians struck back at Israel, after they bombed their consulate or something in Damascus. And I think that was something new to me because traditionally, some planes or missiles come in, air defense shoots up. We said that's a bit, if you remember when the first time Trump threw a bunch of Tomahawks at the Syrians, some of them got shot down. Okay, all those things. And then the Iranians did something different. They flooded them with drones. And then they sent the missiles in. And we really hadn't seen that before, a new drone missile tactic capability that Iron Dome was like a cardboard dome.
Oh, yeah. Iron Dome is designed primarily to shoot down those water pipe made, Katyusha rockets, and it's subsonic, it's easily predictable ballistic trajectory once the thing, the booster just stops working. And that's what Iron Dome does. They fly on the classic ballistic trajectory, fairly high, so easily detectable and things of this thing. And suddenly you have this situation, which is first they overwhelm basically they degrade tremendously the response capability of the air defense, and then, as I already stated, it was classified by Israelis for a reason. You cannot allow any videos or photos of the actual damage. What had happened. And in Tel Aviv alone, there were 44,000 insurance claims for what Iran did. And we're talking about, and Iron Dome is just, it's funny, but the worst part was that THAAD failed miserably. And then, of course, we have all those, they call them Israeli. They are not Israeli. They are Raytheon and Boeing air defense systems. They just unscrew, they made, in USA, with the thingy and screw in the made in Israel thingy. So basically, Iran beat the crap out of them, just absolutely pummeled them. And that is why they rushed to Uncle Vladimir, And that is why then started this and Iranians said, okay, just send your freaking B-2 or whatever the hell with this Moab, mother of all bombs. And so they flew in, dropped the goddamn thing, and that's it. It stopped. And now they also negotiated. Again, Russia participated. Vladimir Putin was involved directly because he has rapport, let's put it this way. It's not friendship anymore with Netanyahu. And evidently Iran and Israel made a commitment not to bomb each other, at least not yet. But Iran definitely is getting ready. And just in case, that could be horrifying. I mean, what they can do. But a good sign is that the personnel on the American military bases was returning back. So, which is good. That means it kind of calmed down a little bit. Nobody wants American GIs to be killed, and so. And we have Roosevelt, that single carrier battle group. Houthis didn't care, Iranians even more so, they don't care. You can send 3 carrier battle groups. Iranians don't give a damn about it, so they are ready. And although Vladimir Putin stated, half a year ago, you can see it, it's in the news everywhere. He said, we offered Iran at that time to cooperate on the air defense issue. They declined. I don't think they are declining anymore. And what is the most fascinating today, it's in the news, I didn't have the chance to work out, no, it's unofficially, that they demand now, remarkably, Iran, which is good actually, I think that's a legitimate thing, that Russia has to be in charge of the assessment of the strategic situation around Iran and within Iran. Evidently, there are some, Russians do have capabilities. And so they kind of openly said, okay, yeah, you guys deal with it. We have our thing. We're ready. Please, inform us. That's kind of was veiled form to say, guys, please give us everything. You have. Russians will do that.
I did want to ask you this, Scott, because one of the things that I said is, and apparently the dunderheads that run this country haven't figured it out. When you start getting these types of weapons that you may be a superpower, but somebody sneak one missile through, boy, they can put a hurt. You can lose a lot of people if you get a ship hit. Any ship gets hit with a missile. Some of these missiles, it can do a lot of damage. So it is important to do diplomacy. Now, here's what I'm throwing at you, Scott. I read, apparently Dmitry Peskov said that the Russians are not going to talk to Kaja Kallas under any circumstances, and neither are the Americans. That the Americans and the Russians, now we already know that the Chinese said we ain't going to talk to her. The Europeans are out of it. They took themselves out of it. From the very beginning, the Russians said, yes, we'll talk to them, the Americans, and they're just standing on the side trying to mess things up. And then they put these clown Kaja Kallas out there. That's not even serious diplomacy. And now the Russians and the Americans have both said, we don't talk to clowns. Scott.
I think Ursula von der Leyen is also saying she doesn't talk to clowns either.
Yeah.
She's gone to war against look, Europe, it's hard to take Europe seriously. Mark Rutte, just 2 days ago, I think, and was saying if any European nation or Europe collectively thinks that they can defend themselves against Russia by themselves, you can't. You need the United States. Europe is incapable of defending itself without the United States. It's the same thing with foreign policy. The European foreign policy was always sort of, an adjunct to the United States, an extension of the United States, a supporting of the United States. And now the Europeans are in a situation where they're trying to, be adults. It's like having a bunch of kids play dress up, for over the weekend. And they're wearing mom and dad's clothes and they're having fake tea parties and all this stuff. And then they say, well, no, we're going to be grownups. Mm-hmm. And it's like, really? You're going to balance a budget, get a job, earn money, clean the house, cook. You can't do any of that. And this is the reality of Europe. They can't do any of the things that are necessary to be a major power. They have no coordinated foreign policy capability. They have no military capability at all. I mean, it's sort of a sad state of affairs because Europe has tremendous economic potential. They have great technology. They have, production capacity, but they can't bring it together because the reality is Europe is fake. It's just a fake concept. They tried to create something called Europe. That was supposed to be the equivalent of these 50 states of the United States of America. They're going to bring the European nations together in this united Europe. It never worked. Europe has always been a collection of sovereign states, except that the sovereign states forgot how to be sovereign. I mean, they have yielded so much of their sovereignty to Brussels that they've neutered themselves. They're literally just castrates, incapable of anything. And they gave up everything and got nothing in return. And it's just this fake entity incapable of sustaining foreign policy, incapable of sustaining defensive policy. And it's a joke. I mean, that's the sad thing, is that it is an absolute joke. And Ukraine is paying the price for this. I mean, the United States went through the motions of saying, we're going to coordinate with our European allies. We're going to get the Europeans on our side and all this stuff. And the Europeans thought that they were big, bad, and they were relevant. And then now the United States has gotten tired of the game, and Ukraine's going, well, that's okay. We got the Europeans, and the Europeans are like, you've got us. America's back there, right? America's still back there. We're here. America's still back there. America's not back there. We're not here anymore. I mean, they've just backing down. They've got nothing. And it's sad to see a continent basically nullify itself. I mean, Trump talked about civilizational erasure. And,
it is.
Yeah. And this
one
is
of few things Trump actually got right, Right, yeah. Garland, sound. Too many windows open, I guess, or tabs.
We can read lips, but we can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm not good at that.
Okay, he said keep going. Andrei, while Garland sorts this out, if I could write 2 books, I mean, look, this whole special military operation thing is, I've got my historian in me, but one book that, one thing I'd like to write about is the evolution of drone warfare, which we talked about. But the other one is the Russian suppression of enemy air defense, the whole way that Russia has taken apart.
Sure, absolutely.
It's a masterpiece in military, and not just
that's
but
what I am preparing. I collected my friends from Russia, and Diana told me that, hell with it, I will be accused of promoting Russian point of view anyway. So yeah, just go right ahead. We're kind of putting together the team to write, because this is such a dramatic change in everything. And I wrote 4 books on that, and even that level is just, my God, we're just beyond that. And that would be very interesting. Absolutely. We should write this thing, we should kind of cooperate on this, because especially since I'm still waiting for Ben Hodges giving agreement to debate me, I probably could wait another year or 2. So Mario Naval said, do you want to talk to Ben Hodges? I say, yeah, I would love to. And still no response. But point is that, it was in combination, and what we have now is that Ukraine is done. It's over. It's done as a state, essentially. And the fact is, they wanted it to do to Russians, but somehow it turned around 360 degrees per 180 degrees, and they got it. I mean, so I look at what is happening and what is coming through right now. It's just, my God. Garland, are you there? We can hear your movements.
Well, we heard a boom. But
are you there? No, he doesn't hear us now.
No, he's.
No, we cannot hear. He lost probably. Anyhow, this needs to be written, and there's very few people who are better qualified than you and me. And
I don't know. I mean, I just find it. There's a book written about British technical intelligence when I was I think called "Most Secret War." Mm-hmm. But when I went to Israel, I was working with Israeli technical intelligence about the Iraqi Scud missile thing, and that was a mandatory reading for them. And when you read this book and you see it, again, the Russians have probably never let us write it, but I would encourage if the story of Russian technical intelligence, how they've how the West started introducing all this technology, and how the Russians basically acquired bits and pieces of it, the analyzing of the debris, and then coming up with the solutions, the technical solutions to this. We were speaking about Iran. From my understanding, I can't claim to have absolute knowledge, but not only did the Russians provide the ability to monitor Starlink.
Yeah. It's Bolshevik. The name of this thing is called Bolshevik, and it was already used 3 years ago. It had the range of 10 kilometers. I'm pretty sure it now has the range way than that.
Well, but they gave it to the Iranians. The Iranians, knocked it out of the park. But my understanding too is that when, Donald Trump's not the sharpest thing, and neither is Pete Hegseth. But when they flew their predictable strike with the B-2s, the F-35s, and F-22s, they gave away the farm. And what I mean by that is the technical collection that was done against the United States on this strike by Russia, and that one of the things that may have been told to Trump is if you try to repeat that, you're going to lose a B-2 or maybe a couple. Don't try to. And that one of the reasons why this attack may not be happening is that because everybody's like, "Where's Russia?" And I've said, I think Russia's involved in ways you don't see.
Yeah, and again, that B-2 flew in. It was allowed to drop the bomb. And that was the thing. And that's
what you guys hear me now?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you. Hooray!
Okay, continue. Yay. Okay, continue. Okay.
So, yeah, the signature was, they obtained signature. And the signature both just passive and whatever it was using. So it just basically
and then the Russians come up with a solution to it. And I think the Russians have provided that solution to the Iranians. And I think the Iranians have, it's been communicated to the United States that you're not going to be able to do that again. And if you do it again, you're going to lose your most valuable airborne asset. Is going to be humiliating for you and destabilizing for you, because right now the world thinks you got the B-2 that can go in there and do this. And when two of them are shot down, what do you got? And so I think that's another reason why Trump is sort of
pulling back. There are all kinds of things. There are some play of the special services, all kinds of intel guys who communicate between each other. It's like Narishkin spoke to this Mitreveli lady, who is now there. Well, she is not Mitreveli, actually. She's Dobrovolskaya. She covers herself up with the Georgian name because obviously her name on her father's side, which is Dobrovolskaya, he was the collaborant with the SS, with the Nazis, So it's very, but evidently they spoke for a long time. Obviously, Narishkin wasn't just saying pleasantries there. He was saying that we know this and that, and don't do stupid things, that was the warning. And so after that, they go out on public, but latest statement by Narishkin, which, of course, I had this protracted conflict, including many people don't know in personal. He was sending me all kinds of things. I just scratching my head. That Pastol, who was showing the photographs of something which nobody knows what it is, and basically trying to express his opinions on Oreshnik. Mr. Narishkin comes out, but of course we understand Mr. Narishkin knows nothing, like this professor from MIT. Mr. Narishkin, he's just, director of SVR. What the hell does he know, So, however, he came out 2 days ago and he said, we have now positive feedback. The strike and the effect totally stunned. Not even the first time. The first time they were like, oh, yeah. The second time when it flew in, it was stunned military political top of NATO from United States too. So, and it is dramatic, of course. And people still, and again, that was the thing. I spoke to my people, my friends, and those friends who are actually in the missilery, have PhDs in physics and engineering, those colonels, funny-looking people, so, and it's repeated. And Vladimir came out, it's not Rubesh. It's not Rubesh. It's something else altogether. And whatever it is, so that's the thing, and it was demonstrated. And evidently the most terrifying thing for them that they cannot really actually track it, period. They just can't. It just, once you have the torch, you have Spears. United States has the first best, second best is the Russian one. The early warning systems. Spears is like practically, like all over the place. They immediately see the torch. They operate infrared, straight optical, ultraviolet, and all that. As many early warning systems. Well, not many. There are only two really. One American, which is the best, and second best Russian one. The rest of the people, they are not even close there. And so they see the torch, but that's the whole thing. Once the torch is up, it's gone, and they cannot see it. Simple as that, because it's accelerate to the Mach, whatever the hell is. Nobody knows. They say Mach 10 plus, okay? And the same going to happen with Avangard. They know something flies. Where? That's why the Golden Dome, everybody laughs at it. Okay, build it, whatever. If you have money, what the hell doesn't matter, You're not going to see it,
No, I mean, again, I don't have the great sources. I have to be really careful. As you know, I travel a lot to Russia.
Yeah.
So my job isn't to develop sources of information inside Russia. And so I'm very, very careful not to even be seen as trying to do that. So I just monitor the press and monitor things.
Yeah, that's what we all do. Yeah.
Yeah, but the solid rocket motor developments, propulsion developments that have been mastered by the Moscow Institute of Thermal Technology, they've got, they're partnered with a solid rocket motor production facility that's located, just south of Moscow, experimental. But apparently this Oreshnik has a first stage that is just, it hyper accelerates it, because one of the purposes of Oreshnik, and it's the same with other Russian missiles. The United States was advertising our ability to saturate launch areas with drones or other loiter munitions that could shoot down missiles in their launch phase. And so what the Russians did is they basically built a missile to get the hell out of Dodge very quickly. It's like, boom, gone. You can't even touch it, kind of thing. And then another thing that I think, because you just mentioned, intelligence services talking to each other. And again, I don't have any evidence of this. There's none whatsoever. I do know this, though, that one of the, potentially game-changing things that was happening at the end of the Cold War was that the Russians were developing a new version of the SS-20, the Mod 4, which they sort of nicknamed the Chukota. And I may be mispronouncing, but Chukota is a region, I guess, in the far, far east.
Chukota, yeah.
And they were going to put an SS-20 regiment there. And by being located
there, they're still based there. It's abandoned, but there is base there.
Well, I think it's probably going to become an Oreshnik base. Why? Because that's the end of Fort Greely. Where our 41 ground-based interceptors are, they're gone. And I think the Russians have also indicated to the United States that, on Greenland, if you put Golden Dome in Greenland, it won't exist, because we'll just put Oreshnik and so you can spend $1 trillion to build Golden Dome, which won't work. But even if it did, it won't work, because Oreshnik can't be shot down, and it will take out all of the Golden Dome infrastructure, and the war's over. I just hope that Donald Trump's listening to this input, because the Russians, I believe, want stability. The Russians don't want a new arms race. They don't want to go down this path. They just want stability, and they're trying their best to. But you have to be careful, because you can't humiliate the United States.
Yeah, that's the thing. Russia will talk to the United States no matter what. It's like today, I post this thing about, look at this. United States still gets their uranium from Russia, of course, through the exceptions to sanctions. And you look at this, and the whole Western world essentially is dependent on Russia for uranium. And United States is the largest buyer. It was 1.08 billion 2023. Today, it's 1.25 billion. And that's the thing which I continue against all those. We have trolls. I have the whole 77th Brigade from United Kingdom working against me on the. So, those psychological operations and things like that. They better learn better than try to do it with me. But in sense, the question is that, is Russia actually interested in destabilizing the United States? No. Absolutely not. That's the whole thing. Some bunch of idiots still think that, Kremlin sits and just dreams about the United States disintegrating. No, it will be a nightmare. I mean, can you imagine with the gigantic nuclear potential and nuclear power station and weapons, and you have the United States and this huge fleet of, can you imagine what it's going to be? The only reason Soviet Union disintegrated peacefully, because at that time, relatively peacefully. Of course, we I wouldn't be here. Because at that time, United States had the real diplomats then. James Baker, they had esteemed Jack Matlock, people of the very high intellectual level, cultured, understanding what is going on. Of course, George H.W. Bush, being the CIA director, might have helped somewhat. Let's put it this way. This time, when you look attentively at the American elites, these idiots won't try to freaking, ignite the civil war or something like that. I don't know. I don't believe in civil war in the United States, but the disintegration is what scares the hell out of me. This is, and for Russians too. You see, you have those 15-year-old boys. Oh yeah, let's stick it to the United States. Said no. Russia will continue to provide off ramps.
Before I want to ask both of you guys something before we go. I'm going to throw the same question now. As we know, unfortunately for the Russians, both of you guys have to understand that Zelensky has given orders for his army to kill tens of thousands of Russians. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm sure that the Russians are looking for a white flag so they can, give up and certainly surrender to the mighty Ukrainian army. That being said, today's January 27th. Which is an interesting date because if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the day that the siege of Leningrad ended, isn't it? And having Scott and I was fortunate enough, what a wonderful time Scott and I had in Russia. And we went to what was then Leningrad.
Piskarev Cemetery.
And we went to the museums and we saw this and it was incredible. But here's what I'm saying, Scott. And looking at that, and looking at the legacy of Russian bravery and standing up and fighting for the motherland and sacrificing, people who think that somehow that the Russians are just going to throw in the towel and let the Ukrainians keep whatever they want to and maybe just have a little buffer zone and they're out of their minds. And looking at that, I left there. I'm like, the Russians are giving up nothing. They're gonna, you know what I mean? I left that and I'm like, yeah, they've got that legacy. They have suffered, and they're not going to let someone come up to their door in Ukraine and threaten them. Scott, your thoughts of the end of the siege of Leningrad and how that affects the way you view things today, if at all?
Look, the first of all, it's something that I experienced. I don't know if you watch me, Garland, when I go to these places, but I try to be Mr. Tough Guy, but I'm crying the entire time. Every time I go to one of these memorials, I tear up because it just overwhelms me, the sacrifice and the courage that it takes to make this sacrifice collectively and individually. And I also, when I went there for the first time, Alexander Zarianov, my good friend, he took me to all these places. And the thing that was imparted on me wasn't just what they did in the past, but you saw this, Garland, how they collectively honor that memory today. It is part of the DNA of the Russian people. And the Russian people collectively will not dishonor what has been done. And they will themselves die to preserve that honor. They will sustain that honor. Now, the Russians are lucky that they have a government today led by a man who understands those sacrifices, but he's not asking Russia to make that same level of sacrifice. This is a man who's had his act together this entire conflict, the balancing of the economic aspects. Remember, Russia's got the sanctions imposed on them, and yet they have to. There we are at Rzhev. What people can't see is those are swans there, and there's the story of when a soldier dies, the souls in the ground, and so here you have the souls of the soldiers coming out of the ground to create this soldier looking down. And again, people need to understand that this monument to Rzhev is a new monument that for decades under Soviet rule. The Soviets glorified the Battle of Stalingrad and the victory there. Of course they did. It was a wonderful victory. But Stalingrad was largely won because of Rzhev, because of the sacrifice made in Rzhev by these Soviet soldiers who pinned the Germans down, forced the Germans to, keep troops there. Divisions that could have been diverted to relieve Stalingrad couldn't. But the Russians lost so many soldiers that they just kept it quiet. And it wasn't until recently where I am pretending to talk to somebody, but it wasn't until recently that Putin said we're going to honor these soldiers, and it's just amazing. It's another place that I just walked, and as you walk, you can just feel, the souls from the ground reaching out and going through you. Russia's not going to disgrace this. They're not going to give that up. But they have a leader now who's not asking them to sacrifice by the millions. He's done a brilliant job with the economy. How people don't understand this, and I don't because I'm not an economist, but to sustain a Western-style market economy under sanctions while divorcing yourself from the West, it's genius level stuff that the Russians have done here. The transition to defense industry that has been done, almost a seamless transition that allows the sustainment of a civilian market economy while Russia goes into wartime level production. Again, this is genius level.
It's Mr. Belousov. It's not Putin. It's Belousov.
Right,
but he's the brain. He's the brain behind all that. He's now defense minister, of course. And
right, but Putin is the director.
Of course, yes.
And then the way the Russian military has adapted. I mean, it's the most adaptable military in the world today. How they learn a lesson and just seamlessly they'll take the officers, like they'll do a battle or a campaign. They'll take officers from that straight to the academy, where the officers will then take what they learned, turn it into, theory, turn it into doctrine, and then send it down. And by the time they're rotating back to the front, that's already being trained at the training centers to update, and just this level. The idea that Russia's losing 35,000 troops a month is what, the claim the Ukrainians are making. It's an absurd idea, an absurdity. The reason why they came up with 50 is because, politically speaking, the Ukrainians are playing this British psychological operation where it's called keep Ukraine in the fight. And the only way Ukraine can be kept in the fight is that they can convince people that they can beat the fact that the Russians still today, are recruiting 30, 40,000 guys a month. And so their reserves are expanding. Nobody's talking about the reserves that are building up. And it's not just for the SMO. Understand that Russia's building up a new core outside of Leningrad. Hey, Finland, think about that one. The Arctic, they're building up forces there. They're reinforcing the Far East. So it's not just troops are going to the SMO. Russia's strengthening every aspect of their military. Modern, well-trained troops, well-equipped troops with effective doctrine are being put out there. The Ukrainians can't tell the truth that actually the Russian casualties are the lowest they've been since this war started. I think there might have been a slight upward blip. It was sort of hinted to me that the Ukrainians are very good. Let's just put it that way. They're very good at drone warfare. And they developed this tactic called the drone wall, where they can basically, in a situational area, basically throw down a wall of drones that just stops everything. It makes life a living hell for the people in there. But even with the drone wall, we're not talking about the level of casualty we're talking. We're talking about hundreds of Russian casualties. That's a lot, but it's not. But if the Ukrainians told the truth about how many troops they're losing versus what they're doing to the Russians, the unsustainability of this effort would become clear. So they have this propaganda thing. They have this Magyar dude who's their drone dude. I've killed 35,000 Russians in a month. I can prove it, really. But they realize, well, that's not enough, because mathematically the Russians are bringing in 40,000. So we got to kill 50,000. So now you have Zelensky and Fedorov, the new defense minister. They're saying they're going to do that. Well, they're not even going to come close to that, but this is all part of this psychological warfare operation.
British are now in charge. We saw how British planned Kursk. They killed 80,000 of their own there. So that's British planning, all right? And so that's a whole other story, you know? So, and in a sense, it was really a smart move on part of, at that time, Pentagon, and saying, you know what, now it's yours, you know, go command. And those guys, British guys, who they have the whole brigade as their army. Wow, you know, they say, yeah, let's go, let's kick Russian butt. They run into Kursk area. The only thing they distinguish themselves there with the atrocities against civilian population. And in there, again, many people do not understand. They lost 80,000 people on the area, which is 159 square miles, which is slightly less than New York, with so not state, the city of New York. You know, so many people do not understand this, and as Scott correctly noted, listen, I'm American citizen, despite the fact that I'm Russian, and I do not want to obviously create, you know, the impression that I'm developing sources and something like that. I don't want you know, people stop me there, you know. So, but yeah, there are some communication lines which, for example, I know people on the high tactical and operational level, but we do not communicate directly. I know what they will say, and especially important, I know what they will not say. And there is a, you know, indirect communication between us. So, but I know when they keep silent. So it's kind of, you know, that thing. And when you look attentively at what is happening and you look at the numbers, one of the reasons of the hysteria is that Russian troops, after Gerasimov, Mr. Gerasimov, Chief of General Staff, was there 2 days ago. He made the review of the operation. And yeah, he stated this very interesting thing, that actually Russian army liberated now the Kupiansk-Uzlovaya. It's not Kupiansk proper. Kupiansk proper is liberated, despite the fact that they still lie that they defy and, you know, with a BS. But Uzlovaya is the key. It's the huge railroad node. If you look attentively, that's why it's called Uzlovaya, means not. In Russian, Uzlovaya means what? You have a major, I mean, gigantic, you know, railroad sorting areas, you know, those things. It was liberated, and it's a city in its own right. It's as large as Kupiansk. And so many people do not understand how important this is. But when you tell them that, oh, okay, now Zaporozhye, oh, okay, 11 kilometers from the outskirts, and you have only this arc of the last defense line. Will Russians go for it? Of course they will go for it. But there's no need to rush. You don't do those stupid things, you know? You just wait, and you just basically, and yes, now it's officially confirmed. I spoke about this yesterday. 1824 bracket. It's when that's what British wanted desperately, and some American generals like Kellogg, you know, the guy. So they wanted that they start drafting those. And guess what? At Sumy Oblast now, it's confirmed. It's not a secret. It's everywhere in Telegram channels, and people say, very many 18 through 24-year-old corpses. You cannot prepare 18-year-old kid, you know, even if he's fanatical. But again, you saw yourself how they draft them. They basically kidnap them from the streets, and they are not real soldiers. They are basically trying to fight pit bulls from storm groups of Russia. Life expectancy is extremely low. The moment they get on the front line, that's why.
Thanks a lot, guys. Everybody go to scottritter.com. That's Scott's that is Scott's website, where you can find all of his good works there. He's got lots of things for you to choose from. The Russia House and Ritter's Rants and all that kind of stuff. Go to scottritter.com. Andrei Martyanov, additionally, Andrei has his blog spot, Reminiscence of the Future, and also Smoothie X12, which is his great YouTube channel. Make sure you go there and subscribe. Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate you coming on.
Bye-bye, guys.
All right. Thanks a lot. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Make sure you share this on all of your social media platforms. Also, thanks to all my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee and all that stuff, people. Make sure that you share this everywhere. Make sure that you subscribe, that you like all that stuff. If you can afford it, it's highly appreciate it if you can contribute to the channel. And as always, you know, you got my PO box there for the snail mail people. Thanks a lot. Share this everywhere. Oh, by the way, and make sure, what is it? Upscrolled. Have you seen Upscrolled? Upscrolled is the new social media platform. Everybody's going over on there. Apparently, the guy's a Palestinian guy. I think he lost like 60 members of his family in the genocide, and he started this Upscrolled social media platform, and everybody's on it. I'm over there, so go over there and follow me on Upscrolled. Make sure you get your, it looks a lot like Twitter. It's interesting. So a lot of people are leaving TikTok and going to Upscrolled. I'm there. Everybody's there. Gray Zone's there, and you name it. Kim.com's there. Go to Upscrolled. I'm out.